Okay, welcome to the Forward Stride Skating Intensive for trainers, the Train the Trainers program for iTrain Hockey. We're going to be working on a few different types of things. The Forward Stride Intensive is just basically we're working on north to south sort of skating. We're not going to work on anything else. We just want to try to perfect the player's stride. So the number one thing that we want to work on is a good, strong, stable stance. The first thing is we get nice and wide, and we sit down nice and low. I always try to get their arms away from their body, chest up. A basic hockey stance is you get wide, you get nice and low, place some weight into your legs, and then also you bend your back. So when I bend my back, to flex my lower back and keep it nice and strong, I bend my back, and then I lift up my chest from that position. And in the same way, you flex your core, you flex your stomach, abdominals, you can flex your lower back in the exact same way. So that's how we flex it. So I'm just going to skate down the ice and glide in that stance, in that forward stride stance. And then we're even going to have the trainers push the players. Normally when we push the players, we push them really hard, really hard. If you can knock them down, that's totally fine. But you push them really hard on the hips, and they use their stopping edges to make sure that they're nice and stable. So here's the first drill. Okay, so the same hockey stance that we were in before, skater stance, nice and low and wide. One thing that I always want to stress to kids is that I want their blade resting on the forehand side. So right now the whole blade is on the ice, and it's resting on the forehand side. That's just a hockey etiquette, just proper hockey etiquette. Make sure it's nice and solid there. Hockey stance on two legs looks like this, like we just did. Hockey stance on one, I want all your chin, your knee, your toe, everything to line up onto that leg. And then we sit down with our other leg behind us. Try to sit so that your hip is almost as low as your knee, okay? So just like this, chest up, knees bent, and we're gonna glide in that exact same stance. In the last drill, we were able to allow the kids to skate up to the blue line, let's say, or to the top of the circle line, and they can glide in one leg skater stance down the ice. This time, we're gonna do the same thing, only now they're gonna start with one stride. So they won't have as much of a thrust, but they're gonna start, if you can look at my feet, they're gonna start in a T push, and one push should be able to launch them to the blue line, and then the next stride should launch them all the way to the next blue line. Okay, with the one leg skater stance glide, we want to make sure each thrust, they're only going to have 3 pushes to launch themselves down the ice. One push from the goal line to the first blue, then blue line to blue line, then blue line into the far goal line. And make sure that they alternate between left and then right in between each of those. We want to make sure that they sit down nice and low. For the trainers, it's a really good idea. In the same way that you push them with a nice wide stance on 2 legs, push them again on one. So if they're sitting on their right leg, and it's a good idea to push them while they're on their right leg, and they can use their outside edge, stopping edge. If you push them from the inside, they can do the exact same thing, but now you're on the inside edge stop. So it's, I'd be pushing the players from both on both legs and on both sides of their body. Next one, very similar to the one leg skater stance. Skater stance is where your leg goes behind you and you lift up your leg. Shoot the duck now is the next one that we're gonna do. We're gonna keep our leg in front of us nice and straight, and you're gonna try to sit even with your hips even lower than your knees, so that your bum almost sits on the heels of your blade. So again, it looks like this. If your arm starts to swing out to one side, your upper body's going to have the tendency to start leaning towards that side. So it's really important. Your arms are going to keep you nice and stable, so keep them in front and keep them nice and straight. Really important for any of those one-legged drills or the hockey stance drill. Okay, so next one, we're gonna put our feet together, same hockey stance that we would normally be in, but instead of a wide stance, we're gonna keep our legs really close together, and then we're gonna sit down as low as we can, arms out in front like we just talked about in that V stance. This is another good drill for trainers to be able to push their players in, but again, try to get their hips as low as what they were doing in the shoot the duck drill. Showing like this. All right, so next one is called knuckles to ice. You're gonna put your hands halfway to the midpoint of your shaft. Knuckles need to be touching the ice, and you're gonna be skating in this stance. So you're gonna take a stride with your right leg while your left leg is sitting right underneath your chin. You're gonna take a stride and then recover that stride. When you recover, your feet come back together just like mine are showed right now, with your knuckles still glued to the ice. A few kids will cheat and think this is good enough, but I want them all the way down nice and low. Look at my hips and my butt, they're sitting nice and low. So a lot of players will try to skate like this. It's really difficult for them to do that, right? So we want them to sit down nice and low, chest up, knees bent, have the flexibility to take the stride, recover, and then switch to the next leg. So next thing I'll show it in motion. And now that we've done all the forward stride warm-up drills for the intensive, we're now going to start doing some actual forward stride mechanics. We'll work on the advanced versions and we'll also work on the fundamentals to it. There's going to be very specific things that we're going to talk about. Seems like a pretty basic thing, skating forwards, but we want to make it as precise as possible. So we'll talk about a bunch of different directions that our body's going to go in. We're going to try to synchronize all of those things together so it looks like a nice fluid motion. The first thing I want to focus on is that I tell the kids, your striding leg is the one that goes back. It shouldn't go out to the side, it shouldn't go straight back, but it should go on an angle, somewhere in between that. While this one goes back, this is the single most important thing that we want to tell kids. While this one goes back, this one is lunging forwards. Right now my hip is nice and high and my knee is down here. We want to take a stride so that we keep lunging that leg forward so that my hip is now as low as my knee. It's a lot longer and a heck of a lot stronger, and it looks like Taylor Hall's type of stride. Okay, we're going to do the exact same forward leg lunge. The stress is on the lunge. We should be able to lunge now so that our top hand, our front hand, our leading hand, should easily be able to touch the ice. We're going to try to get the kids to touch the ice. As a reminder, some kids, especially when you start to slow down the motion, some of the kids aren't sure which hand goes in front at a certain time. So just keep this in mind. Every time that you load up your left leg, you load up your left arm. Every time that you stride your left leg, your left arm strides. So left strides together and right bends together, and then same thing for the opposite. So after every stride now, we want them to lunge this leg so far forward that it's very simple for them just to touch the ice. They take a stride, lunge that leg out, and then it's very easy for them to touch that arm to the ice. So next step, forward stride, is we want the players to pronate. So that just simply means placing all the weight on the inner edge of your toe of the foot. So when we stride, it creates a nice loud rip into the ice. In the same way a figure skater has those jagged edges on the tip of their toe, we have a very similar type of ice-like sort of pick that we use to grab the ice at the end of our stride. Last thing to touch the ice is always that toe, so we can really snap in and really press into it quite deeply for a nice strong grip. And that'll be the main focus now. When they stride, keep that forward leg lunge, but also focus on a nice loud rip into the ice. Okay, so in the same way that we're talking about the pronation of the toe, we can't get that rip in the ice that we were talking about unless we really build the strength in our leg. So how we do that is obviously simply placing as much weight as we can into our leg. So it's very easy for me to just go through the motions, place some weight into my leg, and then perhaps transfer my weight into the toe. So what we want to do is we want to build energy. So I always use it by like touching my leg and saying, okay, we're going to start by lunging that leg forward, placing as much weight as we can into the thigh, and then through, we're going to keep transferring it into the calf, and then really aggressively press into the foot, and then very specifically press into the toe, and then I even get them to grab the ice. So we want to grab the ice, pronate, and get that really strong rip. So with every one of our strides, you're building energy and then transferring that weight from this right leg onto the next one and making it nice and smooth, a nice smooth weight transfer. Okay, so next thing we're going to talk about, we're always talking about different directions that the body's going in. We're talking about the stance, sitting down nice and low. We're talking about our left leg lunging forward. We're talking about our striding leg, not going straight back, but and not straight out to the side, but somewhere in between that on an angle. So it's talking about different directions. The next direction that we want to talk about is forward. We're skating forward. So our arms and our upper body should be leaning forward. I sit down super low when I get into a hockey stance, and it just makes me a little more aerodynamic, which I like. We sit down nice and low, we bend our back as far as we can forward with our weight on our toes, and then we lift up our chest so that we have that, just to reiterate what we talked about before, we have that lower back flex. It should be nice and strong, and it should feel like a flexed muscle. We bend our back, lift up our chest, and sit down nice and low. We are leaning forwards. Last stage in the progression of the forward stride is talking about our arms. Arms need to be they're as important as our legs. They need to be in sync with our legs. So every time that we stride with our right leg, we stride with our right arm, they need to be going at the exact same time. So they recover together, they stride together. Recover together, they stride together. We want a full extension of our stride with our leg, so we need a full extension with our arms as well too. In the same way as our upper body is leaning forwards, we want our arms doing the same thing. We want it as far as we can forwards. It's resting on the forehand side, never in the middle, never on the backhand side, always on the forehand side so it's nice and strong. And then when we recover, we bend our elbow so that our elbow is up nice and high and strong. Shoulders being flexed, elbow, everything's nice and flexed, elbows bent. And then a lot of players get the idea of sort of turning their wrist under, and that's sort of fine if you want to do it with your hand that doesn't grip your hockey stick. I sort of do that naturally anyways. We don't want to scoop too far so that our arm straightens out. I keep mine quite bent. If you look from a lot of the video footage, keep mine quite bent, and what I'm doing in the same way as I'm loading energy from my leg, I am loading energy with my arm and then springing it forwards almost as if I'm scooping the air. Again, arms and legs are very, very important. With one hand on our stick, one arm goes forward, one arm stays bent, and then you switch. There should be a bit of a scoop, almost like you're scooping the air. Common errors that we might see is that our arms are not in sync with our legs, as if we're striding our arms and then our leg. So they need to be going at the exact same time, recovering and thrusting at the exact same time. And then the last most important thing is sometimes we get the players to grip the stick with two hands. So Ovechkin's really well known to stride with two hands quite a bit. Our arms never go side to side. So if we're pushing a puck and then we're chasing that puck, we slide our hand down, we point the tip of our stick behind us, and then we pump our arms forward, and this one bent, and then you alternate that. In the exact same way that Ovechkin would do it, in the exact same way that we would do it with one hand on a stick, we do it with two hands as well too. I always use my belly button as reference, so if I were to use my stick in front of my belly button, my right arm always stays on the right side. So I bend it on the right side, I extend it on the right side. My left arm, I bend it and I extend it, always staying on the left side. Right one's always staying on the right side. You never want your right hand to cross over to the left side of your belly button, simply for the sake of just throwing your upper body off of balance, and it's just too far. We just don't need to go that far. So always arm strides out in front, and we've used the reference before, almost as if you're pulling in a tight rope. You get that thing in quite quickly. Just make sure you're not bringing it too far over that belly button line. Next drill, one of my favorite ones to run for forward stride, focuses on two things. So this is, we're taking a stride. While we're taking the stride, we're going to be stopping off of one of our legs. We're going to focus on two things. One is the angle of our thrust. So I want to stride so that's not too far out to the side, not too far straight back, but somewhere in between that. We're still pronating into the toe, snapping into the toe. And then we want to focus on the recovery of the stride now. So my recovery needs to be as explosive as my stride. So if my stride is quite explosive, my recovery needs to be equally explosive. When I recover, I bring my feet pretty much almost together. So they're almost together once I recover the stride, and I slam my heel down. So my weight is into my heel, but my whole blade is flat on the ice. So think about how I can do that. Weight is in the heel, but my whole blade is flat on the ice, so it creates this sound. Nice and loud, very, very explosive. And it's called an explosive recovery, so that's what we want it to sound like, an explosion. After I take the recovery, I want to focus now on the stride as well. So recovery should happen with my arms and legs at the exact same time. So watch my arms. Left leg is bent, left arm is bent, right arm is straight as if I'm taking a stride onto that leg. And as I stride, watch how I stride my left arm and then recover. So they stride at the same time and they recover at the same time. So that's a nice little tool. Every time that you stride your arm, the more explosive, and the faster you stride your arm, the more explosive and faster your legs will stride at the same time as well too. Going along with the same drill, our focus now is on the striding leg. When we stride and when we stop naturally on, let's say, our right leg, we want to, as we stop, we want to place all of our weight onto that leg and line up our chin, our knee, and our toe. So it's all in line with each other. I don't want to stride and bring my upper body in this direction, or my upper body, I don't want to keep it stationary or centered. I want to stride so that all my weight rests over top of the leg that I'm gliding on. So again, we're going to combine both those motions. We can start with a nice long stride where we stride, recover, pause for a moment, just to get the arms and the legs down. We want to make sure in the recovery, as a last common error, we see a lot of players stride and their recovery angle looks like this, where they wrap it back and then wrap it forward. They sort of do a wrap around. On the same angle that I stride on, I want to be able to recover on the exact same stride. I shouldn't stride and wrap. We're going to do the exact same drill with the stride and the recover. This time when we stride and recover, it's going to be quicker, so we don't need to stop and pause in between each one. Now we want the players doing it quite quickly. So watch how quickly I recover, and then watch how quickly I stride. One common error is that when players stride, we should be striding and recovering with our feet almost right beside each other. A lot of players will stride and only recover like to here, let's say. So the next stride is only this big. So we want to make sure that we stride, we bring them right back together. The stopping leg, if we looked up the ice, we should have a nice long streak with our stopping leg. There shouldn't be a stop and then, let's say, some kind of gap in between. It should be a nice, smooth stop all the way through, all the way down to the other end of the ice. Normally when we do this drill, from goal line to the first blue line, we work on our right leg, and then once we hit the first blue line, we switch, we face the other way, and from blue line to blue line, they can work on the other leg, and then when they hit the far blue line, they switch it up again, and then I work on the first leg. One thing that I really work on is to have the kids have a full extension of their stride. So in order to have a full extension of their stride, in so much of the stride we were just talking about direction. So a lot of people ask, does anything go left and right? So there is one thing that goes left and right, and that's your hips. So I use this line. I just made a line in the ice, just carving up the ice. Some coaches have markers, so you can use that same thing. When we take a stride, we start on one side of the line. I'm going to stride with my right leg goes back on an angle, front leg lunges forward. While this one lunges forward, your hip is going to pop just a little bit out to the left so that you have a more fuller extension of the stride. You're going to stride, not turn your toe, but you're just going to naturally drift to to the other side of the line, and then the recovery of this stride will recover on the other side of this line. So we always use the line as reference. And then we alternate legs. So we stride with our left, this one goes back, this one lunges forward, our hip more or less pops out to the right, and then as we're gliding, we shift our body weight. A lot of players confuse this drill by doing this, where they do sort of inside edge C-cuts that they can recover over the line. That's definitely not what we want to do. You want to keep your body nice and straight, but think like a speed skater. A speed skater more or less does this, and they weave down the ice. So we want to do the exact same thing for a longer, fuller, stronger extension of the stride. So I'll show you how to do that when I take my stride. Watch the weave, watch the natural weave. A lot of players, they'll take their stride, but they'll stand over top of the line, so they'll straddle the line. So they'll start by straddling the line, and if you can see the white line that I carved out, they will take a stride, recover, and they'll recover with their right leg still on the right side of this line. Left leg will stride, left leg will recover, and it'll stay still on the left side of the line. So the reason why we don't want to do this, you see a lot of players have a really choppy stride sometimes. Perhaps their feet are moving quite quickly, but their strides are only more or less this long. So we want to make it longer by doing what we did before, where we start on one side of the line, take the stride, and the leg recovers on the opposite side of the line. So again, should be a very natural weave down the ice, shouldn't be too forced, shouldn't be on the inside edges, but we want to make sure the reason why we're doing this natural weave is for the recovery's sake. We want to recover with our feet almost right underneath our body for a longer, fuller stride, as opposed to a short, choppy stride that's nowhere near as powerful as long as what we can get. Similar to a speed skater stride again. All right, the first stage that we want to work on in taking a nice forward stride all the way straight down the ice, completing the stride, making it as fast as what we could possibly make it, is the first few strides. So I say the first 5 strides is normally, for me, almost the first 10 or 15 strides. Think about when you're driving a car, you've got your first gear, and your first gear is high, really high revs, and so we want to do the exact same thing when we start. We want to go from 0 miles an hour to 100 miles an hour as quickly as we possibly can, so our strides have no glide. So how I describe it is sometimes there's those drills that a coach would lay out 5 or 6 sticks, and what the players would do would be jump over the sticks for acceleration purposes. So if I took a stride with my left and then a glide with my right, I would hit the sticks, right? So what we want to do is avoid the glide. So we don't actually glide onto that leg. All we're doing is taking strides, strides, strides. The most important part of this drill is the stride has got to be very, very explosive. So explosive simply means we want it to be very quick. We want it to be not a full extension. So full extension would look like what we've been working on, nice and long. Less full would look something like this, but the recovery of the stride would be very explosive. So we want our stride to be quick and our recovery to be explosive. We want to make sure that the kids are always starting with an explosive stride. The quickest way to start is always a crossover start. Always have them practice on their left side. If I'm practicing as a lefty, on my left leg, crossing over, my stick points to where I want to go on my backhand side, and I sit down nice and low. This is a player waiting for a bus. This is a player ready to skate at a AAA level. On the other side, I would do the exact same thing. My stick would point to where I want to go. My arms would be wound up, arms away from my body, knees nice and bent, almost as if I'm ready to pounce. The reason why we're not doing a V start, so you might have heard of a V start. If I'm skating in this direction, set my legs up like a V. I have never seen a V start ever in hockey before. It's always a crossover start. We always stop, not turn our body and then start skating in the direction we want to go. We always stop and then start. Normally we turn the stop and crossover start, those two things, into one, so that it's not a stop, but it's actually like a spring. So we spring out of the stop and start. So in the exact same way, I always teach crossover start. So now the only thing with a crossover start is a lot of players might have a nice strong left leg and then right leg crossover. and then there's a pause right here. They turn their upper body, and then there's a slight pause before they get to the chop, 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 quick stride, explosive recovery. So our most important thing that we teach the kids is the second you get that leg down and you cross over, you bust out the next 5 strides as quickly as you can, eliminating any type of pause that we might have in our strides. So I'll do a few more demonstrations, and you can check out just how quickly my crossover is, and then how quickly I bust out the next 5 strides. Most important thing, again, just listen to the noise. The recovery should always sound very, very explosive. When I'm taking the strides, I kind of do this. I kind of hold my breath, and just to get those first 5 strides out. So I don't really want you thinking about anything else when you're taking those first, again, I say 5 strides, 5 to 15 strides, just to accelerate. I don't want you thinking about very much. I just want you thinking about going in a nice straight line, and I don't want you thinking about breathing. Okay, so it's just one sort of, almost like when you set your legs for the crossover start, you breathe in, and then as you cross out, you breathe out, and then all you focus on is just exploding those strides out. So last drill, now it's the full shebang, the full forward stride. So how this is going to work is we're going to skate from goal line to goal line. The first goal line, when we start, we want to focus on those first few strides. They want to be very, very explosive. We want to bust out 5 to 15 strides. What those first strides are going to look like is the same way like we're revving that engine. The stride is going to be quick. The recovery is always going to be explosive. I'm going to keep doing that, chop, 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 all the way up to about the blue line, the first blue line, let's say. And then it makes no sense for me to keep doing that, chop, 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 all the way down the ice. I've already accelerated up to a max speed. Now all I need to do is maintain that speed. So at the blue line, my stride is going to change just a tiny little bit. The stride was quick, and then the recovery was explosive. The stride will change now into an explosive stride, and an explosive recovery remains the same. A very soft recovery sometimes is the stride, and then a very gentle recovery of the stride. So we don't want gentle, we want it to be very, very explosive every single time. The most common error that I find with this one is players really accelerate well from the goal line to the blue line. The first few strides are really perfect, and they get confused with one thing, and that's the recovery of the stride once you hit the blue. So we're just reiterating this, the stride turns into an explosive stride where it's much longer than the first few strides, and the recovery remains explosive. So we want to do the exact same thing. We just want to make sure that the recovery is not a soft recovery, but it's very explosive. So I'm going to actually demonstrate it like a soft recovery, just so that you can see the difference from how I was doing it correctly to how I'm doing it improperly. The most important thing is the switch in the stride. So from the goal line to the blue line, we have a nice quick stride and explosive recovery. Once we hit the blue line, we want to maintain our speed now that we've gained through that acceleration period, and now our stride is no longer quick, but now it's explosive. So it's going to be a heck of a lot longer, but the recovery is still the same. It's still explosive. That's the single most important thing, that once you hit the blue line, in order to maintain the speed, your recovery doesn't all of a sudden turn into something graceful and soft, but it is still explosive, and you still get from, so that you can get from your left stride into the right stride and accelerate even quicker.